So I'm over here at the farm getting some of my instruction for the coming season. I am chomping at the bit to start gardening. I don't know about you, but I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. Let's go over what we're gonna do. So if you look at some of the past videos, you know this area had biomass growing as tall as me. So this is probably this time last year, probably a little bit after this time last year in the spring. The biomass grew up incredible. It was about 6 feet tall. And these were narrow raised beds on contour, terracing down the hill. And then most recently, at the end of the last season, we made these giant terraces. We had an excavator out here and did terraces. So now you can see someone was out here broad forking, and the soil is looking really good. So one of the things I'm going to do coming early March, and now again, we're in the Mid-Atlantic region, Zone 7, I think B, but ultimately, I will come through here and I will just terminate the cover crop. Probably a shallow 1-inch, 2-inch till, just to break up some of the clumps and to make this area ready to plant. Now the greenhouse has already got a lot of things going on in there, and the greenhouse has got starts coming along. So this area just needs to be ready to drop the plants into. But again, as it is today with the broad fork, you could easily start getting your starts in place, even just with a hard rake to knock down some of these clumps. But again, broad fork's about opening up that soil and get that moisture to soak into the ground. That's why the broad forking isn't done anywhere near the edge of this terrace. So as you can see, there's a terrace here, and the outer edge here needs to be able to be mowed, but it needs to also be stable. So as high as the terrace is, that twice that distance back needs to be stable. Now we can still plant in it, but we need to make sure that we're not broad forking it or putting a lot of moisture behind this particular wall, because here with Virginia red clay, you can see what happens. This is the last terrace. You can see what happens. The water impounds a little bit. And so my focus on these terraces will be to get them not level, but to slope slightly back about 4 degrees and then capture that water on this back channel. And there may even be an opportunity for me to come through and scrape up some of the soil and throw it up the hill here. I do see some greens coming along, and I will check for radishes before I leave because there's some greens. But ultimately, this particular bed area, you can see that we've spread charcoal from the furnace, and we've spread straw, of course. The cover crop did not really come in, but we've also spread manures from the rabbits and possibly the chickens. Now on this other side here, like I told you folks, I'm excited. I'm ready to start going, but you can't just go in and till, especially with this kind of system. First off, you don't want to till more than you have to because that's fuel usage and energy usage. And then you don't want to till in a way that will impact the structure. So when we get out to this one here, we have a little high area out in the middle. Nice little cover coming along. You can see the rabbit pellets that have been thrown out here. You can see a little bit of vegetable scraps and stuff that's gone. This area actually has a kind of a hump in the middle that I will till a little bit deeper so that I can rake it out and kind of get this a little bit more level. We want the area, again, these big broad areas. This was a hill before, and by bringing up the bottom to make a terrace, and we'll see that a little better when we get downhill. You can see the edges here. We're now giving us more square footage to work with. And you can see how the moisture, it's rained the last couple of days. You can see how the moisture hasn't made the soil soggy because we have those roots. Those roots are able to soak down into the ground. Those roots are able to help that water get into the ground. And then of course we got our fertilizers, our natural fertilizers coming in, where the other side doesn't have the cover crop, and so we're not getting that soakage. Now there's another area we're going to work on down here, and a lot of this was timing of the cover crops more than anything else, but there's an area we're going to work on down here where we need to get some kind of cover growing on that angle. Now there were chickens out here for a little while, and the chickens have done some scratching. They didn't harm anything, but this hill needs its seed put back on it again so we can get a cover crop going. And you can see how we've gotten much more use out of this space. How you can see there's a large terrace here versus the previous design. Now again, this is a demonstration site, so we have this alliteration of design to show you what's easily done by hand, and then we moved it up a little bit to show you what can be done with rented equipment. And then ultimately you'll see this thing just blossom because it's a lot of great growing area. It's going to be easy to manage. It's going to be self-watering in most cases, but ultimately it is a manageable space. So this does not need to be tilled over time. Over time, it'll eventually get to the point where it'll have fresh, loamy soil. As that clay on the growing spaces has that deep root, we can basically come out here and just broad fork it, or just do a shallow tillage that kills off the cover crop, and we just bury it in biomass. So we're going to move down the hill a little bit more to this other field. This part down here, the cover crop did an amazing job. And let me just make sure we get that glare off the camera, and you can see how beautiful this glorious green hill is. And that's really where we want to be. But again, seasonally and the amount of people we get out here to work, there's always constraints. We do the best with what we've got. But see how beautiful that hill is? That can easily be cut with a scythe, or it can be cut with a string trimmer when it's about knee high. So we don't need to cut it now. Now remember, in some past videos, we had biomass growing out here 6 feet tall. Now we still may do that again, but we want to preference our grains. We want to preference our cover crops that have, like there's peas in here. You can see the peas, our nitrogen fixing crops. And we don't quite want to have that kind of overabundance because we now have a better structure in place and we can more easily access areas. So like this field right here is probably its second year. This one is ready to grow on. In fact, some of these plateaus are bigger than most people's home gardens. And so you don't need to build like this, but if you have the opportunity to do so, you can see the design and how it progresses. This particular area here had radishes in it, the daikon radish. You can see a lot of peas growing right now. You can see some greens, some chicory. But this area here, you can see a little bit of the manures that we've been throwing out. This area here is ready. So come first week of March, unless it warms up, it might be the last week of February, this area is ready to just terminate the cover crop, just surface till. You can see how level it is. I'll back up here a little bit. There are some little bumpy areas up here. They can get smoothed out. But again, we're going to get to the path. So we have this path system in place. Look at that field. That is a lot of area there. Now again, if you want to start your preparation early before the March, before the soil temperatures get closer to where germination rates will be stronger, you could actually bring a chicken tractor out here. You can bring out smaller animals, pigs for example, and just impound them on the level terrace area, which is exhibited by the green grass. Now, have you noticed how beautiful and green this grass is? This grass is gorgeous because again, the nitrogen fixing plants that we use in the cover crop, the ability to slow and spread water, and then ultimately we're adding manures out here. We're coming out here and throwing manures on. And I did just notice that's a little borehole there, so we might have a vole out here or two, but that's okay. They're tilling up the soil, they're aerating the soil. And I am seeing some greens in here, some mustards. Here's what I was looking for. Some of these radishes are pretty good. They're left over from the season. I'll put them out in the path. Actually, that hole over there could have been a radish. As you can see, there's like a big old hole. But again, do you see the differentiation between the not quite hard space, but the areas that we're using for access, and then the areas we're using for growing? And then as we move up the hill, we've got more areas to work with and greater growth. Now, my focus for tilling is going to be the top down. It's going to be shallow tillage up top because those are more mature beds. I will, depending on what the soil looks like, probably add some lime because we have this red Virginia clay. But as we work down the hill, I might till a little bit deeper on the second level that you can see by the edge is not quite cover cropped. But this next level here will likely be also a shallow tillage and get it ready to go. And then there's another field on this side that's going to be shallow tillage. Now, they told me they just planted a whole bunch. I'm looking away from the camera. They planted a whole bunch of there they are. Whole bunch of grapes, and you can see right there. So there are actually grapes. There's another one right here. There's actually grapevines on the whole inside perimeter of this fence. And so if we're thinking about shadows, we're going to have a nice shaded area for access. And so we'll still process this field down here and try to get it closer to being a good another paddock. But we've got, again, the grapes and stuff on the outside. It's going to be beautiful. But as you can see with this field, real good color in it. There's a couple areas where we're getting moisture coming through here, and it actually did not take seed very well because of the how wet the ground was. But as far as this down here, look at this, how beautiful this is. Look at that green. That is the bottom terrace, the lowest terrace on the property, and then there's a channel up above it for access. Now, we may be able to get another field down here, a whole nother field below this, but above it, can you see how we're able to get so many different unique growing areas? Now, I'm going to come in on this bottom field, and this is, again, the lowest priority because we have our upper fields that are more mature and they're closer to the greenhouse. But this lower field here is likely going to be some kind of biomass or some kind of grain or corn or something like that. So I might just terminate the cover crop so that we can get another cover crop in, or we'll allow it to grow with a little biomass before we flail mow it. But I know a lot of folks saw the old videos, and I'm just going to come walk around this way. You can see how easy it is to access everything since we put in these earthworks. But some people were concerned on past videos because how overgrown everything looked, how monstrous all the biomass was. And now when you look at it, it's all gone. Because again, we could bush hog it or we could flail mow it, and then we can get it where it needs to be because we're managing the property rather than just getting out there and growing. There is a plan for all this. And now what I see here is some mustards. Now, if we've thrown manure on the field, I'm not readily picking up the food. I'm not readily, there's food in here, but I'm not readily picking it if we've been throwing waste down here. Like, for example, there's a lot of pea shoots everywhere. These pea shoots are delicious. They're nice and sweet. But again, here's another little field here, just a little corner. And this corner has some manures that were dumped in here. We'll probably get this all cleaned up, and then this will just be biomass. It's not really a big spot to work with. Here's the other side of that field. And folks, I hope you'll look for the link in the description and contact the Sustainable Homestead Institute. And if you're going to be in our region in the spring, get down here and see this in action. This is actually a working farm and demonstration site, and it's got all these little paddocks that we've knocked out. It's got other areas. You can see the mess I made here. That animals have come in here and started to dig out the seeds. But again, all I got to do, so early spring, I'm going to get rid of all those pots, and then all I got to do is till this out, and it will be just fine for other use. Now up here, we have other beds. So there hadn't been any manure here, but they're actually perennial bulbs in here. Now the bulbs will get dug up every couple of years, so we didn't bother to terrace this area. We'll wait till the bulbs split, then we'll dig them up. But we'll probably replant them over on an area that's a little more mature, and then come in here and terrace out this area. But I want to show you something. I've been enjoying these radishes. We cut them really thin. Look at that radish right there. And so over here we got another one right there. Look at that beautiful radish. And then of course these radish greens are pretty tasty, so I'm not going to pull every radish because I want those greens to grow up as well and enjoy those greens. So this has been another podcast of Prosperity Homestead over here visiting the Sustainable Homestead Institute. I didn't even get to give you a full tour. I just gave you some highlights. It's starting to get a little cool right now, so I'm going to wrap it up. But there's a design plan here, and so when it comes spring, I'll be able to come out here and knock out what I need to get done. Another crew will come in behind me, and they're going to put in all the plant starts. I'll come out and help put some plant starts as well. We're gonna get some cover crops on these hills up here to kind of get that grown in and get it secured, because we have our vegetative strips that also provide us biomass as well as habitat for our beneficial insects. And then even while it looks like it's idle, we're getting food out of it, because I am certainly enjoying these radishes. They're so good in soup. They're so good for so many other things. But again, I want to thank you for watching. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got specific questions about what we're doing here or some of the methodology, and I'm just going to walk down this way because that slope is so beautiful right there on that terrace, then visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org and ask your question. I'd love to hear from you. We've got a lot of video programs, some podcasts, a lot of training materials. We talk about pattern recognition. And then again, we talk about the design features that we've got here that are really going to make this farm much easier to manage and overall more productive. Again, be sure to like and subscribe. I got radishes in my hand, so I can't just quite push the video button, but there they are. There's my other radishes. You got to love it though. So much abundance. I'm going to leave you with these flowers and then I'm going to stop.